Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Sleeping Beauty and other stories. The Three Wishes. Once upon a time, in a deep, dark forest, there lived a poor huntsman and his wife. Poor woodsman and his wife. Every day, the woodsman went out to cut down trees to make timber, and every day the work seemed more difficult to do. After one morning, after his wife had packed a meager lunch for him to take along, the woodsman started off. He went deep into the forest, looking for a tree to provide him with a goodly amount of wood. At last he spotted a great oak tree. This will make a fine day's work for me, thought the woodsman. He took his axe in both hands, started swinging it over his head, and prepared to chop down the tree. But as the axe began to descend, he heard a small voice that seemed to come from within the tree itself. The woodsman paused in amazement. The axe stopped midair. Please, sir, came the voice. Do not cut down this tree, kind woodsman. Please spare me my home. The woodsman wonder grew from out of the very tree itself appeared a beautiful spirit standing in front of him. The spirit repeated its plea, and the woodsman, dumbfounded at last, nodded his head in agreement. I will do as you wish, little spirit, he said slowly, even if it means the loss of a good day's work and wages. In doing goodness to me, I will do more than goodness to you, replied the spirit. To show you how appreciated I am of your goodness and kindness, I will make magic for you. I will grant you fulfillment of your next 3 wishes, whatsoever it may be that you wish for. The spirit rose in the air slightly, its wings hovering as it reached out its hand, touched the woodman on both sides of his shoulders. Go now, kind man, and make your wishes with care and good thought. The spirit disappeared, almost melting into the air, as mysterious as it come home. The woodsman stood for a few minutes, thoroughly amazed by what he had just seen and heard. At last he covered his senses, gathered his belongings about him, and started off through the woods for home. As he trudged on home, his mind was full of the wonderful events of the day. He rubbed his head, wondering whether he had really seen the spirit of the tree, or if it had been a vision, or perhaps even a dream. All of this thinking and questioning was far more thought than he had used to. And by the time the poor woodsman found himself at his own doorstep, he was thoroughly exhausted. He went home, wanting nothing but the comfort of his wife, his fire, and a good hot dinner. My, but you're home much too early for dinner to be done, exclaimed his wife. It lacks a good 2 hours before the food will be ready. Ah, me, I wish I had a good sausage right now, he replied. All at once, right in front of the woodsman, appeared a platter which was as sizzling brown and perfect a sausage as he or anybody else in the world could wish for. How now? What is this? Asked his wife, rushing over of the fragrance of the spicy meat filled upon a corner of their little house. Where in the world did this come from? She asked again in amazement. It was then the poor woodsman remembered his meeting with the spirit of the tree, and the magic that granted him his first 3 wishes. What have I done? What have I done? The poor man groaned, holding his head with his fist. I'd completely forgotten. Now one of my magic wishes is wasted. Magic? What magic? What wishes? His wife demanded, not understanding any of it. It was then he collected his senses, remembering it all, then telling everything that had happened that afternoon. The wife listened quietly at first, scarcely believing her ears. But then she realized that one wish had already been wasted on the foolish sausage. Her anger knew no limits. What have you done? What have you done? She wailed over and over again, staring at her husband, waving her arms about as though she were about to strike him. Look at this stupid sausage, she exclaimed. This is what you wished for when you might have gotten us all the gold we could ever need for the rest of our lives. Or a fine new house instead of this poor shack. Or a coach and horses drive us back and forth from the town whenever we wished. I know, the old man moaned. But I was so hungry, all I could think of was something to eat. That's why I asked for the sausage. Sausage? Sausage indeed, the wife shouted. I wish the sausage was hanging from the tip of your nose right now. No sooner had the words left her mouth than the sausage, as it could fly, rose up the platter and attached itself exactly to where she wished it to be. Oh no, wife, no, the old man cried. How have you done? He started tugging at the sausage, trying to get it loose, but it was no use. Even when the wife added her hands to his, they could not move the sausage, not even a fraction of an inch. The man looked up at his wife. You know what it will take to remove it, he said, pleading with his voice and his eyes. You know it will be the only way. The wife bit her lip and nodded. It was clear to both of them the third wish could be strong enough to remove the sausage from the end of the poor woodsman's nose. The wife cocked her head, looking sharply at her husband. You know, she said, staring at him all the while, you look at it from a certain angle, it really doesn't look bad at all. I warrant you could be used to it in very little time. Oh no, wife, exclaimed the woodsman, you can't be thinking about that. You can't want me to stay like this for the rest of my life. You can get used to it, his wife said insistently. Many folk had to put up with much worse. The poor man was beside himself. He knew that his wife wanted to save the third wish for one of her grand ideas, but what good would all the grandness be to him, he thought, if he were to spend the rest of his life in such condition? With all the strength he could summon, the poor woodsman shouted, I wish this terrible thing off my nose. Quick as a wink, there was sausage once more, sizzling the platter, sending forth the most delicious fragrances. So there were no bags of gold, no horse-drawn carriages, no lofty place for the poor woodsman and his wife. But at least for the day's adventure, they sat down as a fine meal as it ever had been served to them. And that's the end of that story. See you next time.